Hello and welcome to another episode of Wednesdays with WV. In fact, this is episode number 42. The guest on this episode is one who started early and also carried on to scale the ladder quickly as well. And unfortunately, things did not pan out as he expected, and perhaps it was also a case of him not getting too many breaks at the right time. However, he's carved a niche for himself with some humongous aggregate of scores in first class cricket, and now he's taken up broadcasting where he's really started off well. It's my pleasure to present to you the stylish left-hander Abhinav Mukund, who's become a broadcaster of late. Hello, Abhi, how are you? All well?
Thanks for calling me stylish, sir. Coming from you. I've been good. Yeah, enjoying my stints at broadcast, but yeah, definitely moving along to the next phase of my life. It's been good.
Did the family environment that prevailed in your house fuel interest in cricket, or were you attracted to cricket naturally?
Family environment more so because my father, my uncle, all of them were part of the cricketing setup. And usually what happens is you tend to take after your father. Sometimes I used to follow him to the grounds, and was very passionate about inculcating the right things in me from a very young age. So, and after that, I think after a point, it just was passion. So it just continued from there on.
Talking of passion, I can assure you nobody could match your uncle's passion to this game. Your
Have
father's elder brother.
have to agree. Have to agree because you see a lot of coaches, and no offense to the ones that prevail, but my uncle had a genuine love for the game. Apart from any of the other stuff, he was actually is the wrong term. He is, because even till date he wants to get on the field, and he's in his late 60s and he still wants to get onto the field and give some fielding practice.
I'll not dispute whatever you said about your uncle. I can vouch for it, in fact. Now, it was a case of both your parents having played this game. So, did cricket hog the conversations at home?
More or less, yes, but like any other good like any other good South Indian household, there's a lot of education also involved in the process. My mother felt that if the education was missed out at some point, she was always there for me to remind me that education is important, which has sort of held me in good stead, even while giving interviews or now doing broadcasts. It's held me in good stead. So it's not only cricket, but I think it was also a lot of reading and exploring other things as well in terms of education.
Your parents obviously were passionate cricketers themselves. Did they belong to the category of parents who were looking to realize their ambitions through you? Would you put them in
Ah,
the category?
it's an interesting question. I don't think so, because there was a point in time, even after I had become a professional cricketer, that went up to them and said, I want to quit the game. And they said, sure, do whatever you want. It was a case of me falling out of love for the sport, and me going back and telling them, that's it, I'm done, I don't want to play anymore. This was in my early 20s, and they were quite open about it. They said, do whatever you want, whatever pleases you. But then I realized through a lot of other things that I figured out, I found the love for the game again. So I don't think I was fueled by their ambitions. I was fueled by my own, to play for the highest level and to play for the country.
Having parents who played cricket can cut both ways. Either they can put a lot of pressure, or they can be very understanding about the highs and lows that a cricketer goes through. Must have been an advantage in your case.
I would think so, because I was never under any undue pressure whatsoever. I think they understood that success and failure came together. And I think that's the mistake that a lot of people do who haven't played the sport, or even if they have, they tend to over expect from your child or from your student or whoever. It's unfair. Even in franchise cricket nowadays, you pay people a lot of money, but that doesn't mean you can extract performance out of them. It's a game where you have to face highs and lows, and like any other, like I keep telling a lot of people this, and if you read well, if you study well, if you prepare well for an exam, you're bound to get good marks. But that's not the case with sport, and I think that's the beauty of it. If you prepare well, you do everything right, you could be given out by the umpire and your day will be done. So that's where I think there is a very big difference. And people, not only people, coaches, parents, team owners, everyone involved, stakeholders need to understand that's the biggest difference of them all.
Now let's get down to your career. You did not waste any time at all, did you? Early start in representative cricket, right?
Yeah.
When did it all start? Obviously, the under 14 levels.
Yeah, I started under 13s. I played for Tamil Nadu under 13s, under 15s, came through the NCA setup. But I think my biggest breakthrough was breaking into the India under 19 team when I was about 16. So that was the bigger breakthrough, because that was the batch where a lot of people were talking about. And as an India under 19 cricketer, you're suddenly a lot more eyeballs on you, a lot more journalists covering and tracking your cricket career. So it's very important at that point of time to recognize that immediately I got an opportunity in the Tamil Nadu Ranji Trophy team. So I don't know, by luck or by chance, it just happened because I wasn't part of the team for the first couple of games. You should be quite aware. I was in really good form in leading up to that season. Got a double hundred and hundred versus Sri Lanka under 19s in Kandy. And right after that, the first couple of games, I didn't get an opportunity. And unfortunately, R. Ashwin got injured, couple of bad games for Tamil Nadu, and I suddenly got a call up. So I wasn't even thinking about whether should I get 100 or anything. It even till this day, I remember very clearly. Your mind is so blank. You don't have any expectations of you wanting to score, not wanting to score. There's nothing. I just went out and batted, and I got myself to 100. So I wasn't thinking of the 100 at all. It was just an end result. I was just enjoying my batting.
The under 19 always happens to be the springboard for aspiring cricketers. It was a curious case of you batting in the middle order once and getting a double hundred, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yes. So it was a case of a lot of openers in that team, and I managed to get a double hundred, and I think Virat Kohli also got 100 in the same game. So it was one of those games where we scored a massive score, and after that, we had an opportunity in the second innings. It's always important to get runs in under 19. I'm sure you understand the importance of that. For people who don't, it's a huge springboard, like you said, because it suddenly puts you on the map. It puts you in the radar of and you, if you're lucky, you might even get up a Duleep Trophy call up or an India A call up, like a lot of my teammates in that batch got after we won the World Cup. So it really is like a double promotion of sorts. Instead of doing the whole grind of Ranji Trophy, which I realized later on in my life how good that phase was. So I think whoever is playing the under 19 levels, it's so important for them to graduate and graduate quickly.
Apart from that innings where you got a double hundred, since then, did you ever harbor the thought of batting in the middle order?
uh, the late PB Chandrasekhar actually told me once that you should bat in the middle order, but I did bat a couple of innings in the TNPL in the middle order, but a lot of my list day innings, a lot of one day innings where we had M. Vijay and Aniruddha open the innings. I batted at number 3. Those successful years for Tamil Nadu, 2010, 2011. There was no vacancy in the top order, so I batted at 3. Personally, I didn't enjoy batting at 5 because you're so used to being an opening batter. Put your pads on, go get either you get a big score or you're done and you're done for the day. So it was just very hard for me to wait inside and wait for my turn to bat. And I just felt it wasn't in me to become that person.
Early on in your career, the IPL started. the temptation to adapt to that format must have been overwhelming.
It was. I think I tried my level best to try and adapt to that format. I must admit, I wasn't the greatest at it. So I think it's a case of you practicing for something throughout your life. I think people in my generation will acknowledge more often than the younger generations now. You're preparing for Ranji Trophy and you're preparing for Test match cricket. I think the current generation is now preparing for the IPL. They want to get an IPL call up. So there are different skill sets required as far as I'm concerned. And if you have to play Test match cricket, a lot of people say if you play Test match cricket, you can adapt easily to T20. I don't know. I have differing opinions about it, but it was overwhelming. People who are IPL stars today are household names without playing for the country, and that's the value of the league in itself. And how many people, how many eyeballs are on that particular on this particular league. So I would think that it's up to you. It's your personal choice. I'm not judging, but as a young cricketer, it is quite overwhelming to adapt to a particular league like the IPL.
Staying on that track for a while, talk us through the mental conflict that you'd have gone through. There are a lot of things to be pursued: money, instant fame, vis a vis longevity. What kind of mental conflict did you have to encounter?
Think as a young cricketer, it's you are in itself fighting your own demons in terms of is your technique right? And I played for India at a very young age. I played when I was 21. I was dropped at 21, and I was suddenly in the
We'll get
wilderness,
to
and I was
that. We'll get to that. We'll stick to this IPL stuff for the time being.
okay. So the IPL, it is, and it is almost like I said, if the under 19s was a springboard, then this is almost like a trampoline that just literally bounces you right into the mix of things. So if you have a good season in the IPL, you are in the Indian team. So it is, it's very important for you to understand what are your skill sets, what are your strengths, and I personally, I tried my level best to get there, but in the back of my head, I also had this core belief that if I get runs in Ranji Trophy, I will make a comeback. So there were two paths driving me all along, and I think you lose a bit of clarity in that.
Yes, it can always catapult you to greater heights, but at the same time, the flip side is that it can also land you in a kind of an abyss.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah, and I was. The thing is, I always believe this very firmly. There are five people who are good enough to play for your particular spot in this country. You have so much talent that you could be one of those five. But if you are not, then sometimes you just get forgotten and you're sidelined. So there is an abundance of talent, and whoever is lucky enough to make the grade or get the call up and stays there, there has to be a vacancy for you to be there. So the IPL, what is done, it's given a bigger platform for people to get into the Indian team. So I would agree with you that if you're not there and you get sidelined, you start thinking of other ways and means to try and get there again.
Yes, you did what many others before you did. You got a plethora of runs in first class cricket to earn a call up into the national side. Just give us a first hand account of how things went for you in West Indies.
West Indies was a blur actually because I hadn't played any cricket for the previous 3 months or 4 months. We finished the season. It happened in June, and so what happened really was that I went in with absolutely no match practice. I landed there, and 3 days later, I was playing a test match. Um, Very different because that was the first time I was facing the Duke's ball as well. It's for those who don't know, we use the SG ball in India. Once or twice I played with the Kookaburra ball in Australia, but the Duke's ball was a fairly new thing. And again, it was just a blur. I went out and enjoyed myself, tried to express myself as much as I can. And I did get a few runs in a difficult series, and then I was called up straight away to the tour of England.
Yeah, getting to the tour of England, you did shape up really well. You shaped up well, but in terms of numbers, maybe there's a little bit of a disappointment for people who take decisions. But still, I felt that perhaps maybe an extended run would have helped you.
Yeah, I had a lot of time to think about it afterwards. So I did think that maybe I could have had an extended run because not I got a 49 in Lords. I got 0 and 3 in the next test match, and rightfully so, I was dropped. But in between those four test matches, like just before the third test, there was a tour game, and I got 100 on that tour game. So not a lot of people know that I batted at 3 and I got 100 for India versus Northamptonshire. But right after that, we went into the domestic season, and I wasn't called up for the tour of Australia or the West Indies series that happened at home. So it was a bit disappointing. I wouldn't lie. It was definitely disappointing. But looking back, I would have thought at how I would have approached it better and all of those things. But I'm not going to dwell on it too much because what's happened has happened.
Yeah, once again, like you play a game of snakes and ladders, obviously had to come back to the domestic circuit, get runs again to stake your claim, which you did. You made a comeback as well. But again, failed to get the right breaks there.
Yeah, so even in those 6 years, everyone's questioning whether you're good enough all the time because now you have a target behind your back and gone to England and you failed. So suddenly the questions in your head start changing. You're like, should I change my technique? Is it not good enough for the international level? What am I doing here? When you're thinking international, you're failing domestically. So there was a lot of confusion, conflict in my head, but. I finally realized that why I started playing the game, like I mentioned, my first 100 versus Karnataka. So many times I wished that my mind would be as blank as that day. So when you start thinking of all of these things, it becomes very hard to get to that mindset. And then I realized I started enjoying the game much better. And again, it was a case of vacancy. My last test innings was 81, and after that, again, uh, the guy opposite me got 190. So I wouldn't blame it on the selectors or the coach that they picked the guy who got 190. So it it was just a case of not getting those opportunities after that. But I'm not complaining.
Do you think the system prepares a youngster well before he's thrown into the deep end in international cricket?
It depends on which format. Test cricket, no. Uh, and why I say no is because if you're playing a game in England or if you're playing a game in West Indies, I've spoken to a lot of seniors, contemporaries, probably people from your generation will agree that you had a couple of days of rest and a couple of tour games. You got used to the conditions a lot more, even if it was a 10-day preparatory camp before a particular series. Let's say you go to New Zealand, you go to England, you have about 10 days to prepare. And then you get into the test match. It makes so much sense. But with a tight scheduling, I don't think anyone gets. I don't think we even have tour games nowadays. I don't think they play any more tour games. Um, let's just take the Ashes for example. A lot of these test specialists were playing county cricket for about 3-4 weeks before the lead up to the Ashes, the Australian players. So I would expect, I would think that the next crop of cricketers go out and play in different countries if they're interested in playing test cricket, because everywhere is a challenge. You have different conditions and you can't, you have to respect those conditions. So I don't think test cricket wise, we are prepared well. I think the other formats we are prepared fantastically because in the IPL, you tend to play more of these white ball bowlers, the best white ball bowlers from around the world. You almost play a lot of these T20s, ODIs in different conditions. And I think that's a different game altogether. But a good Ranji Trophy cricketer, a guy who's got about 1,000 runs, there are many guys like that who don't play in the IPL. What about them? When are they tested? I don't think we're doing enough for those guys.
The decision to call it a day is always a difficult one. Are you at peace with yourself having done that?
Well, technically, officially, I haven't yet retired, but I know I understand where I am in terms of the current climate. And I feel even with the Tamil Nadu team, I had a great last season. And after that, I just realized this wasn't my place or time or place. And a lot of people even now come up to me and say, you should be playing, you can comfortably play another 3 years, 4 years. In fact, the great Wasim Jafar came and told me, if you had played another 5, 6 years, you could have caught up with me. So I'm not, I didn't start playing for records. I didn't start playing to achieve this, to achieve that. I feel with my broadcasting, I want to achieve a lot more. I really enjoy my broadcasting and I think it is a second career in itself. I take it very, very seriously. And fortunately for me, I have a lot of work in terms of vernacular, in terms of the regional languages and also in English. So I just want to keep improving and moving on in terms of this part of my life.
Talking of that, your research and your well thought out analysis came in for good appreciation when it came to the auction of the WPL. Not a bad student, young man.
Of course, of course. It's important to call up the people who are involved, like you in case, you in question, so many others who were there. And women's cricket was almost like a new subject to me. It was very exciting because I hadn't followed too much of women's cricket. I hadn't been a part of the women's cricket setup as much. So with regards to the IPL, it's very different. With regards to a smaller league, is very different. But the WPL is was definitely something that I enjoyed doing, and it's important to ask the right people and get your information so that you can say it at the right moment.
Yeah, talking of leagues, the TNPL is gathering momentum. It's into its seventh year. Year on year is growing in strength.
Mhm.
Do you see something like that happening for the girls as well in Tamil Nadu?
I really expected it to happen this year. It should, I think, if not even at a TNPL, we can have about 4 or 5 games to understand the depth of talent in the state. Something like what the challengers were. You had a challenger type tournament till last year for the women in our country, where the Trailblazers, Supernovas, all of them played. There are 3 teams for 5 days. I understand it's a short period, but there is room, there is space, if there are multiple talented girls in and around the state, then why not? I half expected it to happen this year, but I'll be very surprised if it doesn't happen next year.
I'm sure that something along those lines will happen very soon. Now, from one end of the spectrum to the other, the Ashes is always a marquee event in the ICC calendar or in international cricket. Are you excited seeing the way England is playing of late?
I don't know, I should ask you, coach, because if you are the coach, would you accept me if I went in first ball, reverse swept a fast bowler over?
No, the point is, it's about what it is that the player is willing to do. And once you get onto the field, there's no stopping anybody.
Correct. And I think
That's,
that's what's making it exciting. Because someone like a Joe Root, who's played conventionally all his life, decides to come out on day 4 and reverse switch a fast bowler, at least tries to attempt it. He got a few runs, didn't get out. So why not? More than the batting, I like the way Ben Stokes has approached the whole baseball thing, because baseball to me wasn't entirely about them playing all of these flamboyant shots. I think they're walking the talk in terms of setting fields, declaring under 400 on day 1. These are things he wants to make test match interesting. Yes, why not? He wants more results. Why not? I think the entire team has bought into his idea of this is the way we're going to play. That is always very good when you have a strong leader and the team buys into it. So it's definitely one of the most exciting test series that I definitely will watch, especially when it's against the world test champions now.
would baseball be a viable proposition for other nations?
Like I said, I think it's important to have a strong leader and a team that buys into this strategy. The baseball is something. that didn't come overnight. They decided this is the way they're going to play cricket, and suddenly it's not a switch that turns over. I think it came through a process of every single player in the team buying into what they were going to do, including the field sets. You can set a field, like you can set an umbrella field in front, and you can't just expect your bowler to come turn up and say, okay, land here. I think it was a process that was built over a little bit of time. And surely if the other teams are able to, if this team is able to do it, other teams will have a different method of doing it as far as I'm concerned, but it definitely makes for better viewing in terms of Test cricket.
You briefly mentioned about the world champions. India had the chance, but once again faltered. This keeps happening in the ICC events. Your take on it?
I think we're giving a lot of importance to these ICC events. Partially, I understand failures occur, but only if India loses. I think there is a big uproar about it suddenly, and people tend to take this for take too much of importance for one particular tournament. I understand we haven't won anything in a while, but uh, if you leave out Australia, who won the T20 World Cup, and then you the World Test Championships, I think even the other teams haven't won too much. If you look at it, they've won sporadically, but the intensity in which the Indian team gets flack for losing in a particular game is, I feel, is just a bit too much. All that being said, there is an expectation every single time you play for the country. I know this. I know I'm aware that even you know this. So that expectation needs to be fulfilled, and there is a World Cup later this year, so there will be a lot of pressure on the captain and coach to deliver something. So I hope they come up with the goods this year.
Is it time to start the transition, or would you wait for some time?
I think the transition has begun. We'll know very, very soon with the West Indies series, at least with the shortest format. I think the transition has begun. With the West Indies series team selection, I will expect a few changes to come through. It depends which way they're going to go in terms of those changes. But I think this is the time for you to make the call, especially in Test match cricket with the next cycle till 2025. You shouldn't have a case like Ajinkya Rahane coming back. Yes, he came back, he did well. All that is different, but you can't have a person playing a 1.5 year cycle, and then one guy gets injured, you go back to the other guy who was your vice captain at that point of time. You needed to have 2 or 3 men who were actually ready to face up to the pressure of the World Test champion. I think there are a couple of areas that need to be addressed there in terms of the middle order, in terms of the openers, wicketkeeper. There are a lot of areas to be addressed. What are you going to do with Ashwin? Because he plays through the whole cycle and then ends up being dropped in the final. So a lot of questions to be answered by the top management. I think we'll have a brief sort of answer with the West Indies team selection.
There's been a lot of views about the way selections are done, be it the national side or be it the zonal side. Do you think there's any merit in people thinking that IPL is obviously gaining ascendancy over everything else?
It is. You can't seem to disagree with that. But the ascendancy of IPL cannot coincide with the fact that you are selected in playing the longest format. If you're a good IPL cricketer, then I would still think I wouldn't rule you out of Test cricket. I would still think you play a full season of domestic cricket, get some runs there, and then try and get into the Test team. But I think the biggest mistake people are making is the fact that you have a good IPL season, and then you're in the Test match side. Personally, I'm not a very big fan of that. I believe Surya Kumar Yadav is the best T20 cricketer, but suddenly he was thrown into the Test team. He spent about 4 tests just sitting out, warming the bench, came in ODI team, 3 ducks on the trot, and suddenly he was nowhere. Even in T20 cricket, he was struggling to find his place back, or rather find his form back. So I don't think you should tinker too much with the strengths of certain cricketers. They might still end up being great Test cricketers, but the question that you are asking, I have to disagree with selections in Test cricket based on IPL.
Yes, you're talking about Test cricket, so this question will become relevant. Do you think the gap between first class cricket and international cricket is narrowed now?
I don't think so. I don't think so because international cricket is a different ball game altogether, where speeds are much different in terms of bowlers. The skill sets are different. There is there is no bridge between first class cricket and international cricket in terms of the long format, which is where IPL beautifully fits in. Between 50 overs, 20 overs, and international and List A or Syed Mushtaq Ali, there's this beautiful middle path which is called the IPL. So there's nothing of that sort for the longer format. The consistency of players playing in the 8 overs, they need to be respected as well. Whoever has got runs in the 8 overs, they need to go on and make the grade in terms of getting into the Indian Test team. That is the route that I would I would expect to be followed. But unfortunately, there are a few players who just come in based on IPL performances, and that's where I think the gap needs to be bridged a little bit.
Is Test cricket in danger of extinction?
No, I would say no, because there are a lot of cricketers who want to play Test cricket. If you ask me the same question about ODIs, I would definitely think so. I think you have to make that format a little bit more exciting. Now that I'm in broadcast, I feel that's my least favorite format of all. But Test cricket definitely isn't. I'd love to watch a Test match, especially if it's between two good teams. The battle between bat and ball definitely excites me. Not sure about the general public, but it's definitely not close to extinction as yet.
You're a modern day cricketer, you know more about workload management, you know the general trends. Now, this practice, this net bowlers being sent with the Indian team, who's looking after their workload? I'm sure they bowl a hell of a lot.
What I'm hearing is that all of them do have uh, workload monitoring systems as well. They're monitored very, very carefully by the physios back in the NCA. I've had the same question about a lot of these net bowlers as well, and I think they're carefully managed because most of them aren't just net bowlers. They are guys who have done well in the IPL or very close to being in the call up for selection. So their loads are managed as well, which is very, very good. And they also get a taste of the Indian team. So I think that it's a very good thing that India now travels with about 25 instead of the usual 15.
If you were to be 17, what would you do differently?
Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. I have zero change. I have zero regrets about what I was at 17 and what I am now. I think the life's journey has been beautiful. I'd love to be the exact same version of me.
Now, you started early, got things done quickly in your career. In fact, a lot of people even today feel that you're packing it in early. Now, what would be your words of wisdom to guys who are not really getting the success as quickly as they're looking for?
Persist if you genuinely want it. Persist and believe in yourself. That's something that you lack almost all the time. I see a lot of cricketers going and asking people, seeking validation. That is something that I was always blessed with, where I had a lot of doubts in my head, but seeking validation was something that it exists in every single cricketer's head. But the belief that you have in yourself and validating what you're doing is right is very important within yourself. Then you can seek outside validation. When you are satisfied with what you are practicing for, or what the process that you are pursuing, then believe in yourself, the results will follow.
Thanks a lot, Abhi, for your time, and thanks for your interesting views as always. And I wish you all the very best in all that you want to achieve in the future.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure was mine.
There it was, Abhinav Mukund giving you his insights about various aspects of cricket and also completely at peace with himself, even though a lot of people feel he still has a lot of cricket left in him. But however, it's all about a cricketer wanting to go out onto the field and play, something which he obviously doesn't seem to enjoy these days. However, you're going to see a lot of him in the future as a broadcaster, and hopefully you enjoyed this chat. As I always talk to you about this channel, for those who are joining us for the first time, log on to the handle of Sportstar and catch up with all our earlier episodes where some fantastic stuff has been put up for you. And for those who've been with us all through, keep sending in your comments and feedback because it's very important for us. Until I catch up with you next time, be good and stay safe.